In this topic of protists, we will be discussing about the kingdom Protista in detail. The kingdom Protista is single-celled organism with nuclei and organelles. That means it is a eukaryotic organisms. It is group of eukaryotic organisms. These may be divided into two if we are dividing on the basis of their eating habits. Then there may be autotrophs. Auto means itself, on its own. So autotroph means that they can make their own food. Or heterotrophs, that means they are living on the detritus, some organic matter in the environment, and that they are utilizing to gain their food. The Protista is a convenient grouping, but it is not well defining. So what does this mean that it is convenient grouping? That means all the organisms which do not fit into plants, animals, or fungi, and these are unicellular, they are pushed into one group which is called Protista. So that means this is the kingdom of exclusion. Everything which is excluded from the rest of the three kingdoms, eukaryotic kingdoms, this is included in the kingdom Protista. So it is, we can subdivide the diversity of the protist, but it is quite problematic to do that. We cannot really diversify, right? So how can we differentiate one group of protists from another? Because there will be sort of so much diversity that we cannot assess the similarities or dissimilarities between the group of the protists. And that's why it is, very, very difficult for us to develop some phylogenetics on the basis of morphology. Or even if we are discussing the morphology, there might be multiple origin of the same morphology as well, as we will be discussing in the examples. So on the basis of trophism, what about the autotrophs and heterotrophs? Some of them are photosynthetic organisms which contain the some photosynthetic compounds such as chlorophyll, and they can give rise to their own food. Or there might be some chemosynthetics which can utilize the chemicals to make their own food. And on the other hand, there might be some organisms which are responsible for eating the dead or decaying organic matter. So both of these things are, again, if we try to study the phylogenetics of these two different groups, that would be very difficult and confusing. So phylogenetic, we can do that, and it is very, very cumbersome. We have to study the DNA of all these organisms, and based on their alignment of their DNA molecules, we can assess that which two protozoans are much more related and which two are not. And again, the diversification does put two organisms which look very different morphologically from each other, but they are phylogenetically much more similar. And of course, we can, the third and most apparent form of classification is mode of locomotion. How do they walk? How do they move? So some move by the flagella because they have the flagellum in their body, and some have the amoeboid movement. So these are called amoebans. So on the basis of these, we can classify them, and with the help of classification, we can study them. So when did the first protist developed? It is, again, very, very controversial, and these are originally, when the first protists were developed, they were heterotrophs. They were not able to make their own food. But at later stages, they developed some chloroplasts through endosymbiotic relationship, or maybe any other explanation. But again, these development of the autotrophy is happening in at least 6 lineages independently of each other. So even though they are making the autotrophy, the trophism as their feeding habits, but the 6 different lineages of the protist developed the autotrophy, and later lost secondarily even more often. If they are developing the autotrophy, later in some stages they will lose the autotrophy as well, become heterotrophs again. So the autotrophs and heterotrophs, these are one of the way we can classify the first protist. So the protist group with the microfossil records are widely scattered across the diversity of the protists. The protist can be found in various locations around the world, and we can just bore it. And the micropaleontology is much more developed due to the exploration of the oils, the petroleum, right? So we have discussed this earlier, that the microfossils are very much important in the petroleum discovery. So when they are discovering the petroleum, they will look for a particular type of protist that are inhibiting the near to the petroleum resources. And with the help of modern molecular and genetics and cytological research, we are much better to understand their taxonomy and as well as their classification.